It began with a detail so minor, so utterly insignificant, that I still find it hard to accept it led to the unraveling of everything. As I stood in the living room meticulously folding laundry, Jake's voice echoed from the hallway. "Lorraine, could you lend me a hand with this?" I glanced over to find him positioned near the stairs, his fingers awkwardly grappling with the buckle of his belt. He donned a pair of khaki shorts that draped casually around his hips, the leather strap of the belt coiling in an ungraceful manner. "Could you please make some adjustments to this? It's stuck or something," he remarked, approaching my direction. "Of course," I replied, placing the neatly folded towels to the side. I moved in closer, my fingers brushing against the belt as I attempted to free the strap from its stubborn buckle. "Remain still," I instructed, focusing intently. "Apologies," he responded, pausing to catch his breath while I continued my task. As I pulled at the leather, the buckle surrendered, and in an instant, before either of us could respond, his shorts tumbled to his ankles. Time appeared to stand still. My gaze darted downward for just a fleeting moment, an instinct I couldn't suppress, and I took in the scene before hastily averting my eyes. Jake remained motionless, his hands suspended in an uncertain position, his cheeks flushing with embarrassment. "Apologies," he murmured, hastily adjusting his shorts back into place. I took a step back, my cheeks aflame as I fumbled over my words, assuring them it's fine, it happens. "Indeed," he remarked, his voice tinged with tension. "I appreciate your assistance." He pivoted and dashed up the stairs, abandoning me in that moment, my heart pounding and my mind a tempest of thoughts. It was merely an accident, a brief instance of discomfort, yet the electric atmosphere in the room, the way his gaze held mine before he turned to leave, shifted something within me. Though we remained silent on the matter, an unspoken shift had occurred, forever altering the dynamics between us. My union with Alan was far from a tale of romance. It was not unpleasant, merely a serene and cozy setup that had gradually been fading in warmth over the years. At the age of 44, I entered into marriage with him, who was 50, both of us emerging from the shadows of our previous unsuccessful unions. Alan embodied the essence of routine and passion, dedicating his Saturdays to the fairways of golf, embarking on monthly fishing excursions, and engaging in a ceaseless cycle of client dinners that frequently extended into the late hours. I had grown accustomed to the quiet spaces that lingered between us, filling my hours with acts of kindness, tending to the garden, and maintaining the household's harmony. However, it was then that Jake took up residence. Alan's son from his first marriage had consistently maintained a courteous yet aloof demeanor towards me. I had encountered him only a few times in the early days of my marriage, during those obligatory holiday visits when he was still navigating the halls of college. In those days, he carried an air of reservation, embodying the awkwardness that often plagues young men thrust into the unfamiliar territory of new stepmothers. Yet here we are, 6 years later, and the figure standing at our doorstep was no longer the timid teenager etched in my memory. Jake, fresh from the halls of academia, found himself grappling with the uncertainties of his new reality. His degree in fine arts, a source of perpetual eye-rolling for Alan, had not ushered in immediate success. In the meantime, Alan extended an invitation for him to stay while he navigated the uncertainties ahead. I was not included in the discussions regarding the matter, yet I chose not to voice any objections. The house was sufficiently spacious. The notion of having some company during the lengthy hours when Alan was occupied with work or socializing with friends didn't bother me at all. What took me by surprise was the rapid transformation of the house's atmosphere with Jake's arrival. There was a certain effortless quality to him, a genuine allure that drew others in, making them eager to be in his presence. His humor was arid yet captivating, his smile contagious, and his presence occupied the vacant corners of the house in a manner that Alan's never could. It began with fleeting instances. As the sun began to rise, casting a gentle glow over the backyard, I found myself engrossed in the task of trimming the hedges. It was then that Jake emerged, a cup of coffee cradled in his hands, his feet bare against the cool grass, and the remnants of sleep still clinging to him. He reclined by the patio door, observing my efforts with a relaxed smile. I noted his early rise, casting a glance in his direction. He gave a nonchalant shrug, lifting his cup to his lips for a sip of the steaming coffee. Rest evaded me. Moreover, there must be someone to appreciate the effort you're dedicating to this endeavor. I chuckled gently, a smile playing on my lips as I shook my head. It would be wise to keep that from Alan's ears. He believes this garden tends to its own needs effortlessly. Alan tends to overlook details, Jake remarked, his tone relaxed yet incisive. The remark took me by surprise, yet I chose not to pursue the matter further. Instead, I continued to trim, fully conscious of his gaze resting upon me. As the weeks unfolded, our dialogues deepened, and our exchanges settled into a harmonious cadence within the home. Jake would hover in the kitchen as I prepared the meal, sharing tales from his college years or seeking my counsel on job applications. One afternoon, I discovered him lounging on the couch in the living room, lost in the act of sketching in a notebook. "Would you mind if I took a glance?" I inquired, gesturing toward the notepad. He paused briefly, contemplating before relinquishing it. The pages brimmed with detailed pencil sketches, capturing portraits, landscapes, and abstract designs that seemed to pulse with vitality. "These are truly remarkable," I remarked with sincerity. "Thank you," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's merely an activity I engage in to fill the hours. Consider presenting these to someone, perhaps a gallery or an art director. Your talent is undeniable, Jake." He offered a subtle smile, his gaze locking with mine. "You're the very first to express that sentiment." The gravity of his words lingered in the air, and I experienced a twinge of an emotion I struggled to identify. Then the incident with the belt occurred and everything shifted. For days later, the atmosphere surrounding us was thick with an unarticulated tension, a weight that neither of us dared to confront. I made every attempt to steer clear of his company, yet it proved to be a fruitless endeavor. The house was enveloped in silence, heavy with the weight of unspoken encounters that seemed destined to intertwine our lives. One evening while I was at the sink, immersed in the rhythmic task of washing dishes, Jake entered the kitchen, his hair still glistening from a recent shower. "Lorraine," he said, his voice a gentle whisper. I pivoted, my heart pounding at the way he uttered my name. Indeed, he paused, his hands buried deep within the confines of his jeans pockets. "Regarding the other day, I apologize for the awkwardness of that moment." "It's fine," I replied hastily, redirecting my gaze to the sink. "Let us simply set it aside." "I don't think I can," he admitted, his voice barely rising above a whisper. I stood still, the gravity of his words settling in gradually. I pivoted to confront him, my heart constricted. "With a tumult of emotions, Jake, we cannot." I began, yet I found myself at a loss for how to conclude the thought. He advanced, his eyes unwavering. "I understand, I simply. Please don't assume that it was insignificant to me." The fervor in his voice rendered me utterly speechless, and for a fleeting moment, we remained frozen in place. Suddenly, Alan's voice rang out from the front door, shattering the enchantment. I responded swiftly, glancing back at Jake before making my exit. Yet, as I turned to leave, an undeniable change lingered in the air between us, a transformation that was irrevocable. The subsequent days unfolded in a haze of evasion and furtive looks exchanged in silence. Alan, as unaware as always, devoted his evenings to the flickering screen or socializing with friends, while Jake and I were left to traverse the treacherous landscape we had fashioned. One afternoon, while I was folding laundry in the guest room, Jake materialized in the doorway. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice laced with uncertainty. After a moment of uncertainty, I finally nodded. "Kindly shut the door, please." He entered the room, closing the door softly behind him. "I don't know how to act around you anymore," he admitted, his voice trembling with emotion. "Jake, we must release this," I uttered, my voice quivering. It was merely a fleeting moment, nothing beyond that. "Yet, it was more than a fleeting instant for me," he remarked, drawing nearer. His words lingered in the atmosphere, and for the first time, I allowed myself to confront the reality. It was not merely a fleeting instant for me either. There exists a fleeting instant when you sense the impending crossing of a threshold, a realization that once you step beyond it, retreat becomes an impossibility. From the very moment Jake pressed his lips against mine, I felt it deep within me. This was never part of the plan. In truth, none of it ever was. It transpired late one evening, following Alan's departure to attend a poker night with one of his golfing companions. As I stood in the kitchen, meticulously wiping down the counters, Jake made his entrance. "Struggling to find rest?" I inquired, casting a sidelong glance in his direction. "Something like that," he remarked, leaning against the doorway. He stood barefoot, his hair tousled, and a palpable tension in his posture caused my chest to constrict. We lingered in quietude for a heartbeat, the sole sound being the soft murmur of the refrigerator. His eyes were fixed on me, and when I finally met his gaze, the intensity took my breath away. "Lorraine," he murmured, stepping closer with a gentle intent. "Jake, don't," I whispered, my pulse racing with urgency. "I can't stop thinking about you," he murmured, his voice a calm whisper. "You must," I responded, my voice quivering. "This is incorrect and you are aware of it." "I understand," he said, stepping closer, "but that doesn't alter my feelings." And then he pressed his lips against mine. Initially, there was a hesitance in his approach, as if he anticipated my rejection, yet I remained still, offering no resistance. I was unable to. As I finally withdrew, my heart raced wildly, and I found it difficult to meet his gaze. "This can't happen again," I murmured, my voice scarcely rising above a whisper. He nodded, yet the expression in his eyes revealed his skepticism. I did not either. The subsequent days unfolded in a tempest of fleeting encounters and hushed longing. We attempted to maintain the facade of normalcy, yet the palpable tension that lingered between us was undeniable. Each look, each unintentional brush of skin crackled with an energy, heavy with the essence of who we had become. I wasn't suggesting that Alan was completely oblivious. Rather, his focus was scattered among his job, his companions, and his myriad of interests. Yet, despite his lingering distraction, an unsettling sense lingered within me, as if we were toying with danger. On the second occasion, it unfolded in the garden. The morning had slipped away as I tended to the roses, the sun's warmth enveloping me, when Jake emerged from behind. "You're always out here," he said, his voice slicing through the silence. "Serene," I responded without looking back. He advanced, his shadow enveloping me. "It seems to me that you prefer to keep your distance." My breath hitched, yet I willed myself to remain composed. "I'm not quite sure I follow you." "Don't you?" he asked, his voice a gentle yet persistent whisper. I pivoted to confront him, a tightness gripping my chest as our eyes locked. This time there was an unwavering resolve, a certainty that left no room for doubt or self-deception. He pressed his lips against mine once more, and this time I responded in kind. What started as ephemeral instances swiftly evolved into a force beyond our grasp. Initially, we exercised caution, seeking out the hushed nooks of the house where interruptions would be kept at bay. Yet, as the moments unfolded between us, our courage blossomed. One evening, as Alan attended a client dinner, Jake and I discovered ourselves in the library. I feigned an effort to arrange the shelves, my hands quivering as he loomed behind me. "You're trembling," he whispered, his breath a gentle warmth against my neck. "I'm fine," I insisted, yet my voice revealed the truth within. He rested his hands on my shoulders, gently guiding me to meet his gaze. "There's no need for fear," he murmured gently. "I once felt fear in your presence, but now I stand unafraid. I find myself apprehensive about our current actions." He cradled my face in his hands, his eyes unwavering. "Cease your contemplation on the matter. Simply stay by my side." I felt the urge to contest, to express that we could no longer continue down this path, yet the words eluded me. Instead, I surrendered to his embrace, and for the first time in years, I experienced a surge of vitality. The hidden nature of our bond only heightened its fervor. Each stolen moment resonated as an act of defiance against the life I had come to accept, a poignant reminder that passion and desire still lay hidden beneath the monotony of my marriage. Yet, alongside the exhilaration lingered a sense of trepidation. One afternoon, while Jake and I lounged on the couch in the living room, Alan arrived home sooner than we had anticipated. "Lorraine," he called from the shadows of the hallway. I sprang to my feet, my heart pounding as Jake swiftly retreated to the far corner of the room. Within these confines, I returned the call, striving to maintain a calm tone. Alan entered, his gaze flickering between us. He remarked with a casual tone, though his gaze lingered on Jake, revealing an unspoken curiosity. "Just catching up," Jake said smoothly, his posture at ease. Alan nodded, yet the glance he cast my way as he turned to leave sent an unsettling chill coursing through me. No matter how cautious we tried to be, concealing the truth grew increasingly difficult. Alan started to pose inquiries, initially gentle in nature but gradually becoming more direct. "You and Jake appear to be quite compatible," he observed one evening while we gathered around the dinner table. "He's been quite the assistance around the house," I said, managing a smile. Alan nodded, his face a mask of inscrutability. "It brings me joy to know that you have someone by your side while I attend to my tasks." His words carried an elusive quality that I couldn't identify, and I sensed the color drain from my cheeks. The initial fissure appeared when Jake's closest companion, Grant, arrived without warning. Grant possessed a boisterous personality, unyielding in his opinions, and had an uncanny ability to uncover what others sought to conceal. "You've been spending quite a bit of time at home," Grant remarked to Jake one afternoon, his tone airy yet his gaze keen. "Just lending a hand," Jake responded nonchalantly. "It must be nice," Grant remarked, his eyes momentarily shifting in my direction. "Sharing moments with a companion." A shiver ran down my spine at the remark, prompting me to excuse myself swiftly, leaving them to their solitude. Eventually, Jake discovered me in the kitchen, his demeanor fraught with tension. "Grant possesses a secret," he murmured softly. His conjecture, I responded, though my voice trembled. Jake gave a slight shake of his head. "He's not foolish, Laura. He will come to understand it." As the weeks unfolded, the atmosphere within the house became increasingly suffocating. Alan's doubts, Grant's comments, the burden of our hidden truth, it all loomed like a tempest on the verge of unleashing its fury. Yet, as the perils intensified, so too did my emotions for Jake, and regardless of how treacherous the situation became, I found myself unable to part ways with him. Maintaining a secret resembles the act of submerging oneself beneath the surface, A feat that can only be sustained for a limited time before the weight of the unspoken begins to bear down, threatening to overwhelm. Jake and I excelled at concealment, yet the fissures in our pretense were widening. Alan was no fool, and neither was Grant. And then there was Heather, Alan's colleague, who effortlessly transformed her casual visits into something decidedly more intrusive. As the weeks rolled by, Heather made her way to our gathering one Saturday afternoon, uninvited yet entirely at home. She had visited the house on several occasions, each time cloaked in the guise of delivering something for Alan. This time she arrived with a bottle of wine and an overly radiant smile. "I thought I'd stop by," she said, entering the kitchen where I was busy chopping vegetables. "Alan shared that you've been experiencing a bit of overwhelm recently. I thought you might appreciate a little diversion." "I'm fine," I replied, mustering a smile that felt more like a mask than a genuine expression. "Thank you very much." Heather set the bottle down on the counter and leaned against the island, her gaze sweeping across the room as if she were meticulously recording every detail. "This location is absolutely stunning. Your efforts have truly transformed it into a warm and inviting sanctuary." "Thank you," I uttered with restraint. Her eyes remained fixed on the back door, the very threshold through which Jake had just departed moments ago. "Alan is fortunate to have you along with Jake, naturally. He truly is an invaluable presence here, wouldn't you agree?" My heart raced, yet I maintained a facade of calmness. "He has truly excelled. Having him around is quite pleasant." Heather's lips formed a smile, yet it failed to illuminate her eyes. "I would wager that it is indeed." As the weeks unfolded, Heather's presence grew increasingly frequent. She crafted reasons to visit, cloaked in the pretense of duty, yet her true intention was unmistakable. She cast her line into the depths, searching for something elusive, though I couldn't discern whether it was knowledge or Alan she sought. "You know," she said one afternoon as we sat there, "the heart of the home. Alan tends to keep his personal life under wraps, yet I can't shake the feeling that all is not well between you two." I tightened my fingers, clutching the teacup resting in my lap. "Every marriage has its challenges, naturally," Heather remarked, her voice tinged with insincere compassion. "However, I have no doubt that having Jake nearby is beneficial. He appears quite attentive." The meaning behind her words was clear, and a surge of panic washed over me. And then came Grant. Jake's best friend had always been candid to the point of incivility, yet now his remarks bore a more cutting tone. "You've been spending quite a bit of time with Lorraine," Grant remarked one evening, as he and Jake lounged on the patio, beers in hand. Jake shrugged, maintaining a laid-back tone. "She is my stepmother. Naturally, we will engage in conversation." "Indeed, it goes beyond that, doesn't it?" Grant pressed on, his gaze sharp and unwavering. Jake tightened his grip on the bottle. "What is it that you wish to convey?" "You're acting strange," Grant replied, "and I don't believe it's solely due to the job situation. There's an undercurrent at play, and I suspect it revolves around her." Jake rose suddenly, the sound of his chair grating against the stone echoing in the silence. "You have no idea what you're saying," Grant said, his eyes narrowing. "Do I not?" The atmosphere within the house thickened with an almost palpable tension. Each encounter with Alan resembled a precarious balancing act, while every appearance from Heather seemed like an inevitable trial I was bound to lose. And Jake, oh Jake, he was growing bolder, his frustration with our secrecy rising like a tide, ready to break free. One evening, as we lingered in the library, he faced me, his expression resolute. "I can't continue down this path," he remarked. "Jake, we must tread lightly," I said, my voice quivering. "Being careful simply won't suffice," he retorted. There is an air of suspicion surrounding Grant. Heather is probing, and Alan is more perceptive than you might assume. I averted my gaze, feeling the sting of tears gathering at the edges of my eyes.
What do you propose?
Should we cease? He drew nearer, his voice taking on a gentler tone. I understand that it's not something I can accomplish. We must determine our course of action, for this situation is simply not viable. It was at a dinner party, one that Alan was determined to host, that the breaking point finally arrived. Heather was present, naturally, accompanied by several of Alan's colleagues. Grant arrived as well, his presence a result of Jake's invitation. The evening began with an air of innocence, filled with polite exchanges, laughter, and the gentle clinking of wine glasses. Yet, as the evening unfolded, the ambience transformed. "So, Lorraine," Heather said, her voice slicing through the ambient noise, "how do you keep yourself occupied with Alan away so frequently?" I stood still, her question laden with unspoken meaning. I responded with a casual air, maintaining a light-hearted tone, tending to the garden, immersing myself in books, and assisting Jake with various projects. Heather's smile grew more defined. "Seems you are quite near, then." Across the table, Grant arched an eyebrow, his eyes darting toward Jake. Indeed, Jake has been frequenting this place quite a bit recently. It seems quite reasonable. Lorraine is certainly approachable and easy to converse with. The room was enveloped in a hush, the gravity of his statement lingering like a thick fog. Alan's gaze flickered between us, his expression a mystery, as Heather delicately sipped her wine. With a glimmer of satisfaction in her eyes, Jake abruptly pushed back his chair. "Pardon me," he murmured, stepping out of the room. I decided to see how he was doing, rising swiftly before anyone had the chance to intervene. In the garden I discovered Jake, moving restlessly beneath the gentle illumination of the patio lights. "This was a mistake," he said as I drew near. "What was it?" I inquired, my heart racing. "Everything," he responded, his voice laced with irritation. "Allowing Grant to come here, feigning that all is well. It is far from fine, Lorraine. It has disintegrated." I extended my hand, allowing it to lightly graze his arm. "We shall find a way." He glanced my way, his gaze brimming with a sense of urgency. "In what manner?" "As I find myself depleting the avenues to maintain this cohesion." Just as I was about to reply, the crunch of footsteps on the gravel halted us in our tracks. I glanced over to find Alan positioned at the garden's perimeter, his features obscured by shadows, yet his stance remained unwavering. "What's happening out here?" he inquired, his tone low and menacing. Alan lingered at the garden's edge, his silhouette taut against the gentle illumination of the patio lights. Jake's tension radiated beside me, and for an instant silence enveloped us all. The silence enveloped us, a palpable weight, while my thoughts scrambled for words, any words, to ease the thick tension that lingered in the atmosphere. "Alan," I remarked, mustering a smile, "we were merely engaged in conversation." He cut in, his voice piercing. He advanced a step, his eyes darting between me and Jake. "Isn't it amusing how the two of you appear to have an endless stream of conversation lately?" Jake clenched his jaw, a tension building within him. "Is there an issue at hand?" Alan's lips twisted into a chilling smile. "I'm uncertain, Jake. Ought there to be?" The impact of his words landed with the force of a blow, leaving me momentarily breathless. The air was thick with certainty. He was no longer merely suspicious. "I think I'll head inside," Jake said, his voice steady yet strained. "No," Alan snapped, his voice firm and resolute, effectively closing the door on any further discussion. "You will remain right here." Jake lingered in uncertainty, yet remained still. Alan shifted his gaze toward me, his eyes shadowed and intense. "Could you shed some light on why my wife and son are quietly wandering about in the garden while we're hosting a dinner party?" I parted my lips, yet the words eluded me. The tension reached a breaking point. The following day, Alan exuded an even greater chill, his terse remarks and frosty glares unmistakably signaling that he intended to pursue this matter further. Jake attempted to maintain his distance, yet it only exacerbated the situation. Heather, naturally, discovered a means to weave herself into the tumult. The awkwardness was impossible to overlook. "Last night was just a misunderstanding," she remarked, cradling her coffee cup in the warmth of the kitchen. I responded, making an effort to maintain a cheerful tone. "It was merely a misunderstanding." Heather tilted her head, her smile possessing an unsettling sweetness that hinted at insincerity. "Certainly, but Lorraine, it would be wise to exercise caution. Perceptions hold a perilous power, particularly in circumstances such as these." Her words dripped with a subtle menace, and I could sense her delight in every moment of it. As the night unfolded, an unexpected turn revealed itself. Alan summoned me into the study, his composure steady yet disquieting. "I've been pondering," he remarked, reclining in his chair. "Perhaps the moment has come for us to embrace transformation." In a tone that suggested familiarity, Alan remarked, "Jake's been here long enough," as he asked with a hint of caution. "It seems the moment has arrived for him to embark on a new chapter, to seek out a space of his own." My heart plummeted. Alan is still in the process of finding his way, and he can do so in a different setting. Alan cut in, his eyes steely. "This matter is not open for discussion, Lorraine." Upon sharing the news with Jake, his response was nothing short of explosive. "He's kicking me out," Jake said, his voice escalating, a reflection of the heated exchange taking place in the garden. "He harbors a sense of suspicion." "Jake," I said, striving to maintain a steady tone. He ponders what exactly?" Jake erupted. "There's an air of intrigue afoot. That is his concern, not ours." I rested my hand on his arm, seeking to bring him some measure of calm. We understood the inherent risk, and we must not allow this to escalate further. Jake shook his head, his jaw set tight. "His actions are not driven by suspicion. He is acting this way out of a desire to exert control over you, and I refuse to allow that to happen." That fateful night when Alan urged Jake to depart marked the onset of their unraveling. "You have a week to pack your things," Alan said over dinner, his voice steady yet resolute. With a sudden jolt, Jake's fork clanged against his plate as he rose to his feet. "You do not hold the power to dictate my departure." "This is my house," Alan replied, his voice cold and unyielding. "I can no longer endure this situation." "What is there to tolerate?" Jake retorted, his voice escalating in intensity. "My presence here, or my ability to draw nearer to Lorraine than you ever could." The atmosphere grew heavy with silence, and I could sense the color leaving my cheeks. Alan's demeanor shifted, a shadow crossing his face as he rose, his voice a low, menacing whisper. "Leave this house at once, lest you find yourself wishing you had." That evening, I discovered Jake in his chamber, his suitcase only partially filled. "You can't let him win," he said, his voice taut with fury. "This is not merely a matter of victory," I responded, my voice quivering. "This narrative revolves around the essence of survival." He faced me, his gaze aflame with intensity. "You are not obliged to remain in this place. There is no obligation for you to remain by his side." "I have no choice," I murmured as tears cascaded down my cheeks. "There's always a choice," Jake said, moving in closer. "Join me on this journey." His words lingered in the atmosphere, and for a fleeting moment, I allowed myself to envision abandoning it all, beginning anew in a distant place. Yet, the weight of that realization bore down upon me, and I found myself shaking my head in disbelief. I uttered, my voice trembling. Jake regarded me intently for a prolonged moment before finally nodding in agreement. Then I shall take my leave, he murmured softly. Yet, this tale is far from its conclusion. The following morning Jake had vanished. Alan remained silent, leaving me to roam the desolate house, enveloped by an eerie stillness. Yet, the true surprise arrived that evening when I discovered a note tucked beneath my bedroom door. You believe you've triumphed, Alan, yet you remain oblivious to the reality that lies beneath. I will ensure that you do, Heather. My hand shook as I absorbed the words of the note, the weight of its implications settling in. Heather was aware. She had witnessed something, caught a whisper of a secret, and now she was leveraging it to her benefit. The note from Heather felt like a volatile device, poised to explode in my grasp. I remained motionless in my bedroom, my eyes scanning the words repeatedly until they melded into a haze. My initial impulse was to face her directly, to insist on understanding what she believed she possessed against me. Yet the reality was I had already. She understood that she had witnessed or overheard enough to assemble a narrative fraught with peril, and in that moment she possessed all the power. 2 days later, the confrontation unfolded. Once more, Heather took it upon herself to drop by, this time cloaked in the guise of delivering some paperwork for Alan. I trapped her in the kitchen, my voice a whisper, edged with tension as I extended the note towards her. What is this exactly? I insisted, my hands quivering with urgency. Heather remained utterly unfazed. She rested against the counter, a subtle smirk dancing on her lips. Precisely what it states. Surely Alan is entitled to the truth, wouldn't you agree? There's nothing to share, I replied hastily, though my voice trembled. Heather arched an eyebrow, her face suffused with feigned compassion. Oh, Lorraine, surely you can't truly believe that, can you? Your glances exchanged with Jake have not gone unnoticed by me. I see clearly. With a constricting sensation in my chest, I moved nearer, my voice dropping to a whisper. You are mistaken if you believe you can sway me with this. I refuse to allow you to tear my family apart. Heather chuckled gently, a smile playing on her lips as she shook her head. Shatter your family, Lorraine? You have already accomplished that. I am merely hastening what is destined to occur. Before I had the chance to reply, Alan's voice echoed through the hallway, causing Heather's smile to broaden even further. Fear not, she murmured, I shall take care of the timing. That evening, Alan sat in silence, his demeanor more subdued than usual, as he absent-mindedly prodded at his meal. Hours had passed since Heather's departure, yet her essence remained, casting a shadow over the house. The air hung heavy with unspoken words, leaving me uncertain if she had uttered anything to him at all, while the silence enveloped us like a thick fog. At last, Alan placed his fork on the table and turned his gaze toward me. Lorraine, is there something on your mind that you'd like to share with me? My heart came to a sudden halt. I conjured a smile, masking my bewilderment. Could you clarify what you mean? Alan reclined in his chair, his gaze sharpening. Your recent behavior has been rather peculiar. And then there's Heather, subtly alluding to matters that elude my comprehension. If there's anything happening, now is the moment to share it with me. A surge of panic welled within me, yet I maintained my poise. Alan, there's absolutely nothing happening. Heather seems intent on igniting some sort of spectacle. You're familiar with her ways. Alan hesitated, his words caught in a web of uncertainty, before finally nodding with deliberation. I hope you're right, he said, his voice laden with caution, for if I were to discover otherwise. He left the sentence hanging, yet it was unnecessary to complete it. That evening slumber eluded me. As I reclined in bed, my gaze fixed upon the ceiling, a whirlwind of possibilities surged through my mind. Heather's menace hovered ominously, while Alan's escalating doubt transformed each action into a precarious dance with impending doom. Just as I was surrendering to the embrace of sleep, my phone vibrated on the nightstand. I seized it, my heart racing as I absorbed the words. "Meet me tomorrow noon at the park by the bridge, Jake." The following day, I departed from the house, cloaked in the guise of attending to errands. My fingers clutched the steering wheel with a fierce intensity as I navigated the road to the park, my thoughts swirling with curiosity about what Jake might reveal. Upon my arrival, he stood by the bridge, his hands buried deep within the confines of his jacket pockets. "You shouldn't have contacted me," I said, drawing closer, my voice quivering with emotion. "I did not possess," he responded, his gaze shadowed by irritation. As Heather approached, I inhaled deeply, feeling as though the very earth was trembling beneath my feet. "She knows Lorraine," Jake murmured, his voice tinged with urgency. "She possesses a wealth of knowledge, and she's wielding it to reach Alan." My stomach twisted in knots. "What were her words to you?" "She desired my confession," he remarked with a tinge of bitterness, urging me to reveal the truth to Alan. "She's manipulating us both, Lorraine." As I shut my eyes, the gravity of the situation bore heavily upon me. I whispered, "We're running out of time." Jake extended his hand toward mine, his touch anchoring me in the moment. "We must take action before she makes her move."